Hi everyone, what's up? My name is Kane and today I am with IAME. I'm with Nathaniel and Sayani. We're going to be going over pretty much their entire project. We're going to be speaking about what they're planning to take into the market and why it's exciting to be a part of it. So welcome guys, thank you for joining me for this call, and let's just jump straight into it with the first question. What inspired you to set up IAME and what is IAME?
Okay, so the IAME project started about 2 years ago, and at this point in time, me and Suriname were trying to build what's called an expert system to automate compliance. But eventually what happened was in 2017, the blockchain and cryptocurrency thing picked up, and we realized that we could make the transition into the decentralized space and improve the expert system so as to be able to crowdsource the whole process. So by crowdsourcing the process, you could achieve two things. Number one was you make it like really, really cheap to do the whole process, conducting the KYC process. And number two was efficiency. Because you're crowdsourcing, efficient-wise, everything goes faster, everything's more secure. So yeah, based on those two things, that's why we started that.
Okay, fantastic. And how does IAME compare to the KYC process that financial institutions carry out?
If you ever work in the financial industry, you will know that the KYC system is very archaic. I mean, security-wise, it all revolves around transferring whole documents from one person to the other, and this exposes you to a whole range of vulnerabilities. You have for example, everything that they have is usually stored in one central database. So if you could hack the database, you could have access to all the documents. You have phishing attacks. You have many of the middle interceptions, or in the case of if you're familiar with Paradise Papers, so you had in Mossack Fonseca, you had one employee who was not so happy and just took the database and walked away. So for all those, let's call it vulnerabilities, it's very difficult to make yourself 100% hack-proof because most of it are kind of out of your control. So instead of trying to go for this hack-proof system, we decided to go around for this hack-worthless system.
So yeah, the real problem would be that we're actually submitting PNG documents of our identification to an exchange or whatever broker is asking for it, and that does, you're right, it 100% exposes us for someone to have access to that information, which could be detrimental to identification. So with that in mind, your project comes at a critical junction in time. More government agencies around the world and influential figures are referring to cryptocurrencies as a tool for malicious activity, precisely because they all have a level of anonymity. Or did you wait for the issue to become one of the most hotly debated topics in the space before you launched?
Well, no, we started it 2 years ago, so it's not coincidental. I mean, we always develop with an eye of the future, so we don't develop for the problems of now, but the problems of tomorrow. So 2018 definitely was going to be the year of crypto regulations, so which was why we decided to go into that direction. I mean, everything was foreseen, and we started moving back then in accordance. Still, the issue remains that the regulators themselves will have trouble understanding blockchain and cryptocurrency. And by the time they actually figure out how to regulate it, they will be like, okay, we finally understand how it works, but we don't have the tools. So this again, we're building with a future in mind. So by the time they do come down and start, let's call it clamping down, trying to regulate more aggressively, we want people who are already in the cryptocurrency system to have a system that is compatible with regulatory standards, but also protects them and doesn't repeat the mistake of the past.
Absolutely, and I believe if there is a time to be doing this, it should be now. I mean, there's a massive gap in the market for something like this. I've never seen anything like this. So I'd personally be someone to immediately jump to trying to figure out how I can get involved immediately. And that brings me to my next question. Many would say that off-chain arrangements could reduce the effectiveness of IAME's identification process. How would you deal with actors who use off-chain arrangements to circumvent identification processes you propose?
Well, off-chain transactions by themselves over in your off-chain, so in kind of a controlled environment, which we're not really concerned about. It's up to the off-chain to deal with it. What we're concerned is the main chain. But if you think that the off-chain can let's call it, kill the main chain, then that's where the main chain dies, and there is no point in holding the main chain anymore. So the bulk of transactions that usually will still remain on the main chain, because the day the majority move to the off chain, this is where the main chain dies and there's an actual fork in the system. And if there's an actual fork in the system, then the off chain becomes itself a main chain, and this is where we get in.
Absolutely interesting. And with IAME, you would be creating a new market for metadata on the blockchain. Have you thought about capitalizing on this possibility at all?
We did, but we won't, because the metadata we are building mostly store just as a confirmation, for example, Boolean. So it will be not much of a use, and we want to make sure we protect users' information and make the whole system worthless. So that's our vision.
Absolutely. And some would argue that some transactions should be kept completely anonymous. A good example is a person buying medication for antidepressants. How would you deal with this hypothetical issue?
Well, the transaction will still be anonymous in the sense that individual information if you want to disclose with the counterparty that is transacting with. For the medicine, like antidepressant medicine example, the person will just need to share the name and address, for instance, for the medicine to be delivered to his home. So he doesn't actually have to share his whole ID card.
Okay, and is it possible for a hacker or any other malicious actor to piece together the fragments of the identity by themselves through careful study of IAME's mechanism and work into some sort of reverse engineering?
It is going to be very difficult for anyone to figure out what fragments belong to whom, because the fragmentation occurs on the client side, and all the fragments are encrypted separately before being sent to the shuffling server, which will then distribute all those fragments to third-party validators. So for someone to come in to actually we are not storing anything on our server, we are just kind of distributing. So the person will have to intercept the transfer channel, and we are talking about maybe thousands or hundreds of thousands of users' information being transferred around. So it's kind of like a shredded paper being thrown in a big dumpster area, and you go and try to figure out what piece of paper belongs to where.
I mean, if I have to give an analogy for that, so imagine every single user itself is a puzzle box. So when you're doing the identification, not the whole puzzle box is being sent, but actually only part of a puzzle, because you're not trying to identify the whole identity documents. Sometimes you only need part, like only the name or the address. So you have let's say 1,000 users, everybody being one puzzle box, but everybody being one partial puzzle box. So if you take all those 1,000 partial puzzle box, and then you show everything together, just after you finish encrypting every single puzzle piece, and then you put them in a giant washing machine, and then this gets sent out to the third-party validator. So if you're trying to actually target someone in specific, well, you'd have to, number one, decrypt every single piece of a puzzle, and then try to mix and match which one fits each other. But then even when you mix and match, let's say in the case of a name, you have Soyani, or even more easier, my name Nathaniel. So Nathaniel could be cut into pieces, Na and Faniel. But if you take the Na and then you piece it with something like Fali, so you're like Nathali. So you could figure out the name what it is. You can only fill pieces, but then combination and permutation with name, you get a whole range of different names and everything. So even if you manage to fit two puzzles together, it might be from two different puzzle boxes.
I see exactly what you're saying. So the strength is that from the malicious actor's perspective, he has absolutely no idea whose fragmented information he would be analyzing, and to actually piece together those minority fragments would be almost impossible, because he wouldn't be able to identify if one fragment is indeed part of another person's. It could be two different people's fragments of information.
You could actually reconstruct a completely new identity based on the fragments, but then it would be a worthless identity because it's an identity that doesn't exist. Because
they could or could not exist. So it would be impossible to identify whether the fragments you've parted together are actually part of a real person and not just fragments of 3 people together, or 100 people together. Which actually is very, very cool. I really like that. On to the next question. Fragmenting the identity of a person and confirming it on every transaction in essence generates two transactions on the blockchain chosen by the user and the other on the IAME's network. How would you address scaling issues to make sure transactions don't go through before the identities of the parties involved are confirmed?
Well, the identification and the transaction don't actually happen at the same time. Fragmented identification process happens when the user signs up for the IAME wallet, and the confirmation of identity is almost like a SSL handshake just before a transfer happens. So it's not exactly two transactions for every single transfer. You have the identification, and then you have the confirming of the identity, which is a much effortless process.
And that doesn't happen on every transaction.
The identification doesn't happen on every transaction. No.
Because you identify, like let's say in our case, one specific cryptocurrency address. So once this is identified, well, unless this address is sold or stolen, as long as it stays on the wallet, then it still belongs to the same person. It's like, like you issue a credit card. So it's not as if for every single transaction you need to reissue a new credit card. You can use the same credit card all over and over.
So once the verification has been established, you do not necessarily need to use the same verification process for every transaction. But
the verification does need to be refreshed every quarter, just to make sure that the documents, the information is updated, but needs to be done on a it's called quarterly basis.
The reason I ask is because I'm obviously interested in if it would generate any kind of bottleneck on something like that on a Bitcoin network. But from what you gave me, it sounds like you're confident that that is not the case. And with that, how do you expect the market to react to this product, and what have you seen from them up until this point?
Well, the concept of fragmented identification is still a very high-level concept. But once you get the gist of it, it's what's called a revelation. It's like, wow, I've never thought about it before, and this solves so many problems. So right now what we're focusing is on the short term and the medium term. So we have secured several partnerships with blockchain companies and also non-blockchain companies who are actually interested in integrating our product for their side, because let's say they have some expensive KYC compliance costs, and also they are also concerned about the security thing that's happening with all those database hacking everywhere. So commercial-wise, we are pretty much secure. Concerning what we would call as a mainstream integration, we believe that very soon you will have, if you look over the past couple of years, the number of data breaches have been increasing exponentially. So as this gets more and more severe, and actually the average person starts feeling the pain of data breaches, this is when the mainstream will actually turn around and says, is there a better way for me to identify myself where I don't have to expose my KYC, my identity document on like a multitude of servers? Like, for example, let's call it a personal case. I have like a cryptocurrency, let's say ICO investment left and right. So maybe there's around like 25 to 50 people who hold a copy of my passport. And those guys, when I give it to them, I have no idea what they do with it. If they do get hacked tomorrow, I wouldn't even know until the day I actually suffer the consequence, like by someone using my passport to buy an air ticket to go to, I don't know, Syria. So this is when people will actually start to, turn around and say, we have to move on. And this is where we think we will get our mainstream breakthrough. When people start realizing that the information is not something to be packed and sold to everyone, that the identity should not be spread around like candy, this is when we will break it through.
Wow. And how can users go right now and find out more about your project? Where would you suggest that they go?
We have a website which I think is quite comprehensive, but we're trying to get everything. We have some what's called interactive videos where people can learn on how it works. We have technical white papers.
And you already have a video out?
Yeah, we have a video out. It's quite, I believe it's straightforward, but then there's always room for improvement.
Well, absolutely. We would link it down below so viewers can go have a look at that right away, as well as the website link and your white paper link. Is there anything else you would like to say to the viewers from Bitcoin Chasers' perspective that you're really excited about your project? What is your, how long have you been working at this project for, and what were you involved in previously?
Oh, okay. So how long we've been working? So officially, the project started in July 2017. Officially, we were already building the expert system since late 2016. So it's been going for quite a while. I mean, we went through the whole process of angel investment, traditional partnerships, going straight forward to the industry people and asking them, explaining to them how it works, and trying to negotiate integration. So right now, because the regulation is still ambiguous about cryptocurrency, it has been very move forward. But when we actually are moving in terms of ICO development, I mean, actually we already have proof of concept out, so which is something a bit unusual. I mean, some of the ICO companies, they come up with an idea. I mean, we have an idea and development is already well underway. Proof of concept is available. You can download it, test it, and see how it works. So I would tell people.
So you have source code available on GitHub?
Yeah, part of the source is available on GitHub, but I would recommend people just to download the application and use it, because I'd rather people evaluate us by what we do rather than what we promise we will do.
Absolutely. And how big is your team currently? I mean, who's all involved in the project?
Right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So
all in the room with you. That's amazing. So there's 7 and everyone's working currently. Oh man, guys, this project is absolutely awesome.
It's like back-end, front-end, UI. So design, and then there's marketing on the other side. So it's a compact team. Okay. Everybody's working as hard as they can. This is, because we're building, we're already in development phase. We're not waiting for the ICO to start development, because I think people should have something to look at before we make any investment.
Absolutely. And with these new concepts we introduce, and touching on the final point I want to bring up, obviously there are a lot of questions from the community. How can they get in contact with you, either through Telegram or social media? What is your preferred method of communication at the moment?
Telegram.
Yeah.
Telegram is
we
much
are there all
easier.
the time, 24/7. So if anyone has a question, they can just come to our Telegram channel, drop the question.
And we
find
have
the
teams,
answer.
so we have Chirag is in the UK, Ari is in Australia, so we're covering more or less almost all of the time zones.
Absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to leave that link down in the description below so people can go ahead right now and ask you guys some questions. I just want to thank you guys for taking your time to get IAME's whole message across in a nice short video, and I think the viewers are going to be very appreciative of that. Very appreciative of you guys taking your time, as well as you're so friendly and interactive. I think there's a good future for what you guys are trying to do, and I firmly believe in it.
Okay, thank you for your time, Kim.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you very much, guys. Have an absolutely amazing day. I'll chat to you later, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.